Welcome to October Scaries, where I'll be watching these 13 movies and reviewing them. So today we're going to talk about Night of the Living Dead. And if you are looking at me and you're like, is she giving Mrs. Puff? I am, because I had a wisdom tooth removed like 3 days ago. So I'm still a little swollen, but I need to keep up with the schedule and get these videos out. So it's the first day of summer, and we come upon a brother and sister, Johnny and Barbara, who are visiting the cemetery in order to lay flowers or lay something on the grave of their father. And all of a sudden, a ghoul attacks. So this movie doesn't use the word zombies, although it is a zombie movie. They use the word ghoul. I'll probably switch between the two. But we jump in right away. We see a man walking, quite a little bit of stumble with walking. You could mistake it for a real person. And Johnny gets to making fun of his sister because, she's a scaredy cat when it comes to cemeteries, until the man that they see gets close to them and attacks Barbara. And Johnny, the brother, comes to her defense, fights with the ghoul, the undead, which we don't know yet is the undead. And he somehow falls. I think that these ghouls are very animated. They are very agile. They are limber. Not the slow moving, Walking Dead type of zombies that I'm used to. These were very. They seem to have a little bit of consciousness to them, even though they were undead. So Barbara gets in the car and drives away. Before she drives away, as she's running away from the cemetery, she trips, which I'm like, white women have been tripping in movies since the 60s, apparently. And she eventually makes it to the car, cranks it on, drives away, gets into a car accident by hitting a tree, gets out of the car, runs, makes it to a house, and she grabs a knife to protect herself, and she's like making sure all the doors and windows are locked, and she's just looking around, making sure she's secure. At a certain point, does she go upstairs before Ben arrives, or I don't remember anymore, but she has a brain, I will say, because what happens is once Ben shows up, who is played by Dwayne Jones, and is the reason why I chose this movie, because when I was putting together this list, I wanted horror movies that were also led by Black characters, and I found this movie on a list that was on the Oprah website, and it hailed this movie as one where, the lead character is a Black man, but his race is not the main reason why he's in the movie. Like, it's not what his character is all about. And I'll get to that. But so Ben shows up, and as soon as Ben shows up, Barbara seems to lose all her marbles. And so let me talk about the representation of women in this movie. Barbara legitimately is an idiot. She is of no use. She is not an asset. She is a hindrance. She is dead weight. She can't really speak. She's speaking all slow. Like, her brain just flies out the window. The two other women are Judy and Helen. Judy is just there, I feel like, to be attractive and just be Tom's girlfriend. And then we have Helen, who is, a more solid representation of a woman. For the most part, I feel like the women were eye candy. Well, not even eye candy, just there in the movie. Didn't really show much personality. So Ben tells Barbara what happened to him. And his encounter with the ghouls was horrific, right? I believe he was in a diner or close to a diner, and he saw a horde of them kill another family or someone else who was driving, and he had to make an escape. That was horrific. Barbara only had to deal with one. So Ben went through all that and still kept his wits about him. But she fell apart. I know she lost her brother, but that's no excuse. And so Ben tells his story, and then Barbara starts telling her story of how she ended up at this house, and immediately Ben gets up and is like fixing things, and she's talking very calmly, and he's like, calm down. Very misogynistic. So that's the representation of the women. Ben is a great character. So he was brave, smart, a critical thinker, not a pushover, a leader, and also disrespectful and misogynistic, as I said before. Then we have Mr. Cooper, who is the antithesis of Ben, because Mr. Cooper is against... First of all, Mr. Cooper is selfish, as are Tom and Judy, because the whole time Ben and Barbara were upstairs, fighting for their lives and barricading stuff, they were in the basement hiding, and then came up. Ben and Tom came up. I'm not Ben. Mr. Cooper and Tom came up and were lying to about some, and they couldn't even keep their story straight, saying, "Oh, we didn't really hear anything." And the next thing you know, it was we heard the noise, but we didn't know what it was. So Mr. Cooper is a coward. He is a fake leader. Like, he wants to be seen as in charge, as the patriarch of his family, but he ain't really got the answer sway. And then when Tom switches over to Ben's, supports Ben's idea because Ben is more sturdy and knows what he's doing, Mr. Cooper doesn't really have anything to offer, so he just loses Tom as an ally. So he's like anti-progressive and stuck in his ways and will abandon you in a second, etc. So when they come up with the plan to try to leave the house, go fuel the truck, they give Mr. Cooper a very important part to play. In terms of like throwing the Molotov cocktail. I'm like, y'all sure you want to give that job to Mr. Cooper? Because he seems like a traitor. And he was, because when everything went south and Tom and Judy got blown up and eaten, he then left Ben for dead, literally. And then Ben broke into the house, saw he was running, and they got to fighting because, like I said, Ben doesn't suffer fools. And so despite, this movie was on the list on the Oprah website about, the black character and his being in the movie, it wasn't about his race. Me, Janine, and Jennifer were still tense. We were still waiting for that N-word to drop. Especially, it's a black and white 1968 movie. Especially in those scenes where Ben and Mr. Cooper were going at it and arguing. I was waiting for Mr. Cooper to drop, boy, the hard ER, something demeaning and cutting Ben down to size because of his race, but that never happened. But so the plan goes south and things go south, period, in the movie, because after that happens, Ben and Mr. Cooper get into a fight. Ben kicks his ass and I think banishes him to the basement. Mr. Cooper winds up dead because he had a daughter who had gotten injured, and I had a feeling that little girl was gonna die. But then when Ben shot Mr. Cooper and he died, I forgot about the little girl, and then come to find out she really did die, and then she ate him. The depiction of the ghouls eating people was atrocious. Like, it was so disgusting. Like, they really took their time showing them eating the leg and the hands and the intestines. Like, it was absolutely disgusting and horrific. So Mr. Cooper dies, and then freaking Barbara dies. She wakes up and comes to her senses and tries to do something, but then she gets dragged out by the zombies. Her brother actually ends up getting her. Then Mr. Cooper's wife, Helen, gets killed by the daughter as well. And then the daughter, and so then it's just Ben left, right? And in the meantime, there is a band of white men with dogs who are making their way over to the house. When I saw them white men with dogs, I was like, Jesus Christ, please don't let anything happen to Ben. They shot Ben. They couldn't really see that he was black through that little hole. And after looking, up information about this movie, I learned that the director, George Romero, casted Dwayne. He had written the script for a white man, picturing a white man, but Dwayne was the best. And then when he casted Dwayne, he chose Dwayne. He didn't change anything in the script, which tells me that the main character was always going to die. But it's a black man. It changes when the character is black. Some things aren't as innocent, and to me, it reminds me of Lovecraft Country, where we have monsters and zombies, but the scariest thing for black people is racism. And even at the end, after Ben gets shot, the way they throw up the pictures of the hunters, the white men, it made them look monstrous. And ironically enough, Ben getting shot like that was shocking and is what elevated the movie to a 5 for me. Because before it was like a 4, like enjoyable, but that element of racial horror, however unintended it was, made it a 5 out of 5.